Hey everybody, welcome back to the Comic Wall. It's your girl, the Outcast Angel, and today let's talk about issue 9 of Evolution. Now, this series has been getting super intense, especially as this second arc goes on, and while most of our questions have been getting answered, more just keep popping up. So, dropping back in, we check back in with Abe, who kidnapped one of his friends, Frank, and snuck his way into the CDC, where he could study some of the samples he had brought with him a little better and just get a better idea of where he needs to go in order to possibly stop whatever's going on, this attack as he thinks it is. And Frank got away. He busted Abe up pretty good, and Abe doesn't seem the least bit worried about this. I mean, granted, the whole office seems to be deserted and kind of, I don't know. It just like we see this part here where someone has dialed 911, but no one's there except for Abe and Frank. And I don't know if people were there at one point or what, but I don't know. It just seems like everyone just kind of left, you know? Anyway, Abe has put together some of the samples he's studied and researched and put it together in a box that with a note that says "Study me," and he goes after Frank, saying that, "Hey, this has been hard for me. No one would listen, and everyone just kind of turns a blind eye." And while Frank is still kind of not, paying attention, he's still like freaking out, panicking, which is odd being a scientist of the CDC. You'd think he'd be a little more, I don't know, just better prepared for something like this. Anyway, Abe manages to corner him, and and when Frank tries to attack him, Abe sticks him with a needle and injects whatever he used to bring out the evolved. Well, to bring out the evolution in these other evolved. And honestly, Frank just explodes. It reminds me so much of like The Thing by John Carpenter, and it's just intense. I mean, ooh, that's so bad. And so basically, Abe leaves him as a kind of example. Yeah, kind of like an example for the rest of them, because obviously no one has paid attention to him, and unless he has proof, Frank being that proof, no one's gonna listen. And the last we see of Abe in this issue, he's cleaned himself up. He's gotten some new glasses and everything, and he's walking up to the door of his old house, the house where his wife and son are staying. So I'm excited to see where that goes, but at the same time, I'm scared because what's gonna happen? After that, we jump back to Claire, Rochelle, and Mr. Hurwitz. Yes, Mr. Hurwitz, and they're driving. They're outside of Los Angeles, and they're driving to this place that Mr. Hurwitz says could help Rochelle in her, I don't know, in her transformation process, I guess. And as they're driving there, we even see one of the evolved kind of hiding out in the bushes, and Mr. Hurwitz isn't the least bothered by it, obviously. And when they get there, Rochelle looks like she's in pretty bad shape. I mean, granted, I'm not sure how badly this evolution, like, I guess, affects the host, but I don't know. Anyway, they get to this house, and Mr. Hurwitz is basically saying this is a one-time offer. There are people here who can help you, but this will have to be your home for a good while. And so, obviously, they don't really have much choice, so Rochelle kind of just goes with it. And when they get in, they're automatically, like, not exactly swarmed, but, yeah, basically swarmed by a whole bunch of people in these hazmat suits. And while they're not exactly attacking, they kind of get to Rochelle and take her off to the side, where they're going to be, I guess, examining her. And Rochelle's pretty much for this, but she just wants this to be done with. So she wants whatever they need to do to be over with, you know? And one of the last scenes is where Rochelle's getting checked out by these guys in the hazmat suits, and I'm sorry, I said Rochelle, right? Rochelle's getting checked out by these guys in the hazmat suits, and Claire is talking with Mr. Hurwitz in the fact that, Mr. Hurwitz is saying that they're gonna do some preliminary examinations and, just give her the attention she needs as she's going through this transformation. And while Claire is pretty worried about this, considering their first encounter with an evolved that Mr. Hurwitz shot with a shotgun, he says it was regrettable. It wasn't something I wanted to do. It was something I had to do. And so, Mr. Hurwitz reassures her, saying, we've got friends here. We're all friends here. But the last we see of them, we see the outside of this house that they're in the middle of the woods, and there's a whole swarm of evolved coming up to the door. What's going to happen involving them, and more importantly, what's going to happen involving Rochelle? Because what I think is that maybe they're bringing out the evolved, or they're helping the evolved to be fully formed, and kind of just dumping them out into the woods. Is that what's going to happen to Rochelle? And finally, we jump back to Quedlinburg with Hannah and Juan and Captain Rennekamp, who is leading this whole type of, I don't know, some kind of care unit in Quedlinburg for these evolved. And we get a lot more information about how this whole ordeal may have started, because he starts talking about this guy named... Sorry, I completely forgot his name. His name is Ryan Ruggles, I believe. Ruggles. And he looks pretty interesting, to say the least. I mean, turns out he was possibly the perpetrator behind this whole evolution going on. Captain Rennekamp even describes him as, what does he say? He says, essentially, he could have been patient zero of whatever this is. But for the most part, Captain Rennekamp seems to know what's happening and why it's happening here exactly, and to Hannah herself. And so, turns out Ruggles was a member of Cavalis, this, of the San Francisco chapter, this type of cult that Juan keeps calling it. But then again, it could be some kind of altered form of religion that that Ruggles essentially either started or took a step further, because Captain Rennekamp goes into saying that as a convert, converts are more, I guess, they're more like, as Juan says, they're more dogmatic than those who just grew up in a religion. People who have been converted are a little more spirited, if you'll excuse the pun. And so, as a convert, Ruggles was devoted, and so he, with the guilt, as a man with a guilty conscience, as they say, he started looking for to atone, in which he decided to start this English language school in Germany. And while they're there, he decided to turn it into a church, in which it became a church of Cavalis, where most of the stuff happened and where most of the stuff started. And so Captain Rennekamp goes into it saying, was Ryan Ruggles exposed to something biological at that party that Hannah was first, I guess, exposed to progresses? And he continues to say, something he could have carried here and spread to these people? Or is there something in the religion, in the ideas of Cavalis, that were being recited, incanted here more than anywhere else? You know, so between science to religion, you know, in a sense that could have started this. And Hannah brings up the mention of maybe a type of corruption, and it just it gets a little weird here because this is where the whole line between science and religion kind of mix in the sentence. And so the issue ends with one of the soldiers coming in saying that there's one of the women who's changed is headed for emergency surgery, and he says that she actually asked for a nun since she heard that there was one here, referring to Hannah. And Hannah asks, "Oh, she's dying?" "No, she's pregnant." So now we're dealing with a pregnant evolved. How is that gonna work? Was she pregnant before she started evolving, or did she become pregnant after? So that's pretty scary, and just to think about that, I'm pretty worried about that. Anyway, that's the end of this issue, and I was lucky enough to get a letter printed this time, and instead of the usual Jon Moisan, the editor, and Christopher Sebela, one of the writers, we actually have Joseph Keatinge joining us in this letters page this time. And so I start with, "Hey Evolution team, honestly, this has to be one of my favorite issues because so many questions got answered. But as we go on, more questions are going to be answered anyway. Also, I know this is just the beginning of all the biggest things happening, right? If that makes sense. Sorry. I'm curious, will this story ever pass to a new set of characters, or are we sticking to these 3 sets? Excited for next issue, whatever. Jon Moisan responds with, "Thanks for the kind words, Andy. You're definitely right. From here on out, we'll start pulling back the curtain more and more until the full bloody picture is revealed. It's gonna be gross. It's gonna be gross, y'all. And for those of you still curious, this is indeed our cast till the end. We might have some new characters show up and wander throughout the story, but this is our core group. If only we could find a way to make them interact." Anyway, Joseph Keatinge jumps in saying, "Andy, you're quite possibly the most impassioned Skybound reader, and it is highly appreciated." I guess I am. Thank you for that. It's just you guys bring up the best stories that I've read so far, so you know you guys got me for a while. And so he continues to say, like John said, the characters will remain the focus, but by the end of the series, they may not resemble the characters you've grown to love. Horrible things happen to your favorite people. Keep reading. That terrifies me, because if what I'm thinking is right, by the end of this series, most of our characters may be evolved characters, and that may be how we're following the rest of this series. But until then, we'll have to keep reading and see what happens. So that's the end of this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, drop a like, show the love, hit that subscribe button to get more of my videos, ring the bell to get notifications of when I post new videos, so that way you guys stay updated and don't miss out. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.